Hey, John, can you light me up over there? Thank you. Hey, good evening, morning, afternoon, pick your time. We're going to get this started. If I can be so bold as to interrupt y'all's conversation. There's a little switch. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. Whatever it is, it is. This really is just more of an answering question opportunity for folks to get anything else clarified that they may have on the matter of the Synod RIC Synod vote. And to do our best to respond to any concerns that folks have at this point. We have certainly informed and kept everyone in the loop on just about every inch of this. We have shared with you all the intricacies of how this works, how this affects within the Synod and the church. My hope is moving forward is that this church continues to be a loving and graceful place for all people. That hasn't changed. In some ways, I feel like this church is absolutely being completely supportive of what RIC stands for. We just don't have that title. Reconciling Christ was developed as a way to help congregations stand out for their belief of treating people who were in the LGBT plus group, and they wanted to be lifted up for being a supporting congregation in that way. And this idea of a synod being an RIC thing is a relatively newer idea. Where I struggle with the language between myself and the synod office is that they want to say synod is not just synod office, but for all practical purposes, it really is just the synod office that is RIC, because I know for a fact that not every church in the Gulf Coast Synod is RIC. Therefore, to say that they are RIC churches would be a complete lie. That doesn't mean we can't keep moving in that direction. Doesn't mean that we don't take these things important. It doesn't mean anything other than the Synod office is moving forward, taking a position on this, so be it. Now, there's also a distinction between being a reconciling in Christ Synod and the work that Reconciling Works does that provides the RIC distinction. And I know many of you have read their website and read parts of it that are there, and you have some concerns about the language that's used, especially when we talk in particular about race. And one of the reasons why we are doing a book study on race is because I think we need to have a better vocabulary of the conversation of race so that when we do read these things, we have some way of contextualizing this stuff, so we have some way to be able to talk about these things without feeling like we are stepping on eggs or we don't even know how to have the conversation. So that's my little preamble there, as best as I can put together. Let's open up with a word of prayer, and then we'll take your questions. Sound like a plan? You are on video, so don't say anything that, you want your dog at home to know, or anyone else. The Lord be with you. Holy Spirit, be present this afternoon as we take time to discuss this important matter. Help us be the church you call us to be. May we keep our fear at a level that doesn't define who we are. And in the same respect, God, challenge us to move forward, whatever that might look like. Your presence in this place is so valued, needed, and longed for, and we do not want our actions here to harm, hurt, or impede those who would come through the front door. Humbly ask these things in your Son's name. Amen. There's a microphone right over here. We've got another one up here. Seems to be that I just need to take another microphone all the way to the back. Since you all seem to think the best place to sit when we do this is as far back in the sanctuary as possible, that's so helpful. I'll put this right here. And the only reason we need that is we do have people online who are watching. Questions, feelings, impressions, ideas, please come up to the microphone. Or not. Preferably not all at once. We can hum the Jeopardy tune. That's the spirit. Larry's already up to the microphone. Afraid he beat you, but you can go next. How's that? Or there we go. Larry, go ahead. Do me a favor, grab the microphone, or go to a microphone that's for the less sure. Yeah, I know. Maybe we should lift that up. Can someone take care of that mic so it's up? Yes, sir, Larry.
My concern is the financial part of it.
Okay.
Where's the structure? What's happening with the money that goes to where? That's the big issue that I really have from an understanding of the whole concept.
That's fair.
What's their goals? What's their mission?
I don't have answers to that, but I definitely think that it's something that the church council can take on and get back to you. I think we should know more about reconciling works. I don't see any downside to that whatsoever. Before we got into the movement of summer and everything else, we were working in that direction already. We wouldn't want to see a budget. We'd love to see how they do what they do. Not for any nefarious reasons, but just, as you said, so we can answer questions. We want to know, if you want to know what someone values, follow the money. Come Tree of Life, follow the money. What do we spend our money on? You spend an awful lot of it on your pastor. You can interpret that any way you want. We spend money on our building. We spend money on our worship services. Those are things we value. I know, you just want to know. Tell me where you're putting your money. That's not an unreasonable question when it comes to a nonprofit. I don't care what nonprofit you're running. So we'll work on getting that information, if that's fair. I would like to know too. So I totally hear that. So let's put that in our notes of things to do to find out. So that's your job to remember that. Yeah, you. Yeah. All right. Yeah, Council President, he's on top of this. Yes, Kathy, what do you got? Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Mic number 2, please. Red. Yes. I think you're fine, or if it's not on, or come up to the second one. I was just trying to be convenient. Yeah. Yes, what do you got?
Hi. With me in the Bad Girls and getting questions that I'm trying to field.
Yes, ma'am.
That's why I'm here.
Yes, ma'am.
Just to get an overall picture.
What do you got?
So here's my question, though, to start it off. I thought we were all inclusive to begin with.
We are.
Why has this been made into a very big thing?
Well,
is it someone behind it? Is it what is happening?
So I think what happened, this is my best guess. This is story time. When I was in Kenya, I knew that we had this vote coming up, and they had these meetings for folks to attend. I didn't think anything of it. So we just sent out an email. Hey, there's these meetings coming up. I'm gonna send these. And they were like, we want you to pick some folks. So we picked some folks. Or I don't know, maybe we hadn't even picked folks. I don't know. But anyways, we put it out there like, hey, these meetings are coming up. If you want to attend, here you go. And next thing I know, I'm getting an email from my council president saying, so, tell me more about this meeting. I've gotten many phone calls, and folks don't entirely understand what this all means, and how do we interpret this? And he goes, they're very concerned. I'm like, oh. Now, granted, I am 10,000 miles away. Well, 9,500 if you really want to get down to it. But so I have no idea what folks are thinking. I haven't talked to anyone. I don't know what's going on. So then I just to help Kevin in his work, wrote another letter saying, hey, folks, let me kind of tell you where I'm at with this. let me tell you what this means, based on just pure, I know, I told you a story time. And as a result, we said, so we put this out there, not that it was any big deal, but then as soon as I write a letter, I escalate it at that point, right? Now it's become a thing, because how many letters from Pastor Chris do you really get? You've had 3 this year. That's probably about 4 more than you've gotten in the last 10 years, okay? It's just not my favorite form of communication. But, there wasn't much I could do about it from Kenya, so we just needed to write something out and get it out. So now we've escalated it, right? And then, as we got closer to the vote, we had another meeting. Well, now we've even escalated it even further. Right? Not only we had a letter, but now we're having a meeting. And folks had feelings, strong feelings. And they had read some things on the Reconciling Works website. They're like, I don't agree with this, flat out. And so we needed to find out more about that. So but as far as has anything changed? Personally speaking, no. All we've really done is just affirm what has already been going on. If you live strictly by what RIC stands by, if you think that supporting RIC means buying into everything that Reconciling Works does, well, maybe some things have changed. I don't know. But the overall rubber meets the road. Like, tomorrow is Monday. And if you go back 3 months ago on that Monday and compare the two before the vote and after the vote, nothing has changed. We've just affirmed what was already happening 3 months ago on that Monday. And in doing so, maybe what we have done is been more welcoming to the LGBT plus community. Never a bad thing. But we've done so at a synodical level, meaning the work that the synod office does. Maybe and giving this synod a stronger stance and being supportive of LGBT plus folks. That has changed in that we have more insignia saying that we're an RIC synod. But that's it. I don't know if that answers your question or not. Please use the microphone. Nothing personal. I saw you were about to speak, and I'm like, but they'll never hear you back home.
Okay. So this synod is RIC.
Yes.
It's Tree of Life RIC.
No. To be an RIC congregation, it's about a 2-year process, at least.
And is that the way we're going?
I don't have an answer for that. Let me put it this way. If we become an RIC congregation, I would like for it to come within the congregation to make that happen. If it's a Pastor Chris thing, I'm going to spend an awful lot more time talking about this all the time. And more to the point, I strongly love our mission statement. I think our mission statement holds us accountable to be inviting, inspiring, and encouraging to all people. And I have put it on a sign out front, and I've taken that word all, and I've turned it into yellow, and I've circled it. I know it's not profound, and it's not on a 30-page document that says this, this, and this. I just think all means all. And that means if you're liberal, you're okay. If you're conservative, you're okay. If you're gay, you're okay. If you're transgender, you're okay. If you are queer and you don't know, it's okay. Welcome. You're welcome here. We will treat you with dignity and respect.
So the vote was for the synod?
For the synod office. Look, this is deeply inside baseball stuff. The synod office will tell you it's for the synod, and I would correct that a little bit and say, you mean really the synod office, because you can't say that the synod is RIC, because I know for the fact that St. John's and Waller is not an RIC congregation, and about 50 other or 60 other churches. Now, there are some churches in our synod who are RIC congregations. And They have gone through the process, but it is a distinction that comes with great effort. You have to really work hard to get there. You know, will Tree of Life be in our IC congregation? I don't have an answer for that. I don't want to say no and say that's never going to happen. At the same time, I don't see us heading that direction at this point because there's all this anxiety about it. And I'm not going to force that down someone's throat because that's not going to change attitudes or beliefs. All we're going to do is just separate and divide. I've done plenty of that over the last 15 years, kind of tired of it. Would like to see as many people we can bring along for this conversation as possible.
I might have more, not just yet. I'm going to listen.
All right, I'll keep trying to say smart things. Ish. Yes, ma'am.
Knowing me, I get emotional.
It's all right. Come a little further here. So.
From somebody in the room who is of a group. I've come to this church because they're saying, welcome to all. Been in churches where they say, we are, but they're not. When I walk up to a minister that I'm the board treasurer, I'm the elder, I'm a Stevens minister, and I say, may I renew my vows at this church? And they say no. It upsets me. Oh, Chris, I'm looking for a church again. Been many churches and had to move churches because of their attitudes. There is no attitude here. Why this conversation needs to come up at this church? Because you are. I don't care what the bylaws say. You have a mission statement and you live it. Tell everybody that I know I have a good church and they accept me. They accept Christine. So, I've read very little of the documents because they're worthless to me. Because this church is accepting. Let me do the things that I want to do and I volunteer to do. What I do. Not because of who I am, but because of who I am, but because I want to volunteer and do things for the church and for the membership of the church. Because we are a family. But if we have to spend money to do something more than what we're already doing, I wouldn't agree to put another nickel in it because we are what we are.
I hear you. And I appreciate your words. I do. You speak from a vantage point that no one else in this room can.
Thank you.
Yes. It is appreciated. Your experience is unique and different, and the fact that this congregation has been as open as it has been is a story I tell all the time. And I am very proud of that. Montgomery County Church has figured out a way to do this. This is good. There are the Montgomery County churches that are doing this as well. The difference is that there are some churches that do this formally. Chris Lake is less about the formal action and a whole lot more about the informal action. And so that changes. For some folks, that does not feel good enough, and I honor that. However, the informal process does seem to have value here at this congregation. And I will continue to challenge and push you. But first, I'm always going to love you. And I will expect the other people to love you too. No matter where you're at in this conversation. I've had people say to me, Pastor, I cannot get behind the idea of a gay pastor or a transgender pastor. I said, okay, well, we can start with that. It doesn't mean that that's the end of the conversation. That's just where we're starting it. And I'd prefer people be that honest about it. I'd rather you say it to each other and to my face than just to hold it inside and manifest things that are unhealthy for all of us. Let's just start where people are at, see where we can take this. I have never hidden from the fact, y'all, that I am a rather liberal pastor. All right? I know, you smile like, yeah, you're just a conservative in hiding. No, I'm really not. However, I grew up in Texas. Grew up in West Texas. It makes y'all look pretty leftist, to be honest with you, all right? And I have a feel for the people of this state and for my community, and I know in my heart that we can figure this out. Now, it's not perfect, and I don't want to suggest in any way, shape, or form I have the secret key or anyone else in this room. I just know that if we can be honest about how we feel, we can start with that. I don't know where it's going to take us, but I trust that we can get there, you know. One of the big controversies of the church 10,000 years ago when I worked for Henry Schulte as a youth director is he said, you know, when I started this gig, one of the big problems we had was what do we do with divorced clergy? Scripture does not wiggle on that matter at all. And Jesus speaks directly to it. And it's clear. Divorce is not acceptable. Now, there are people who will go, well, but they lawyer our way through this. And I understand that. I do it all the time too. But they'll say, well, look, Pastor, it was a place and time and context and everything else. Fair enough. Interestingly enough, I have never been to a church-wide meeting where the question of divorced clergy has consumed all of our time. Somehow we managed our way to find a solution with that issue indirectly, unofficially. And then it finally just kind of became part of the vernacular, and we're all at peace with it. And now we have divorced clergy all over the place, and it is just fine. They're very good at what they do. Yes, marriages come apart. We all acknowledge that. It's a terrible thing. Nobody wants it. Well, some people do, but that's a whole nother conversation. We've all met that person who's like, you know why divorces are expensive? Because they're worth it. Okay, fine, I get it. But my point simply is that we found our way to a solution there. And I don't think it's unreasonable to assume that we can't find a solution in these matters as well. I think that the coalition that works at the Synod office on these matters would like more of a formal accounting of these matters. I just prefer to take an informal approach to it. And so far, the leadership of the council feels the same way. And we will continue to take every opportunity we can to continue to challenge and push this congregation in all kinds of ways. But we're not going to force you to be this or that. We're going to find our way there.
As somebody that's still in the community and still has a little push in the community,
Yes.
being the gay, the trisexuals and all that kind of good stuff, is that the first thing they look at is the website and see if you say you're accepting, and we do say we're accepting.
Yep.
But then you have the problem, and when you walk into a church and you have somebody here that comes into a church and they don't like your music, they think the clergy wears too many robes. There's always some reason why they don't come.
Right.
And most of the time is when they come, is they want to come to a place that's 95% gay community, not heterosexual community.
Yep.
And so that's their latest
Yes,
excuse
I don't really
for
have
having a reason not to come.
Okay.
If they were looking for a good church to come to, there's absolutely nothing that this church doesn't present to them. They have music other than the classic music. We have good songs. We have, we don't do there's always some reason why somebody walks into a church and they don't like it when they come in and they don't come back.
Yep.
So we'll never get past that.
Maybe, maybe not. I never give up hope.
But again, thank you for letting me speak.
I appreciate you. Thank you. Other thoughts, concerns, questions, feelings, impressions, visions, bad girlisms? I'm being a tallest. I'm sorry.
all right.
That's just cruel and unusual. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Jenny.
Take care of those who are not as tall as others. Yes, ma'am.
Jim and I both talked about this a lot, and particularly after we did research on reconciling works.
Yes.
So that was more alarming to us in its fullness, and I suppose because there was a word national in there, and I felt, in fact, the words, I guess, that were quoted in our letter, I worry that we will have an agenda that is somehow more nationally recognizable than Christ recognizable. And I want an agenda that when Jesus says, my food is to do the work of the Father, that we are aligned with that, and that our only agenda is to love God with all our heart, soul, strength, and mind, and to love our neighbor as ourselves. So that's the first. I don't want any competing agendas with it. Yes, if anyone in this church decides that they want to be part of a group or a political party or a movement or anything, I'm really okay with that. But first we gather in Jesus' name.
Yes.
And that's what unifies us. And then we struggle, most of us, with how to do that. How do we live that out? And we all come up with different answers and sometimes different things at different ages, too. But I guess that was my only hesitation at the synod level, is because it seems like this has only been a year in the making. Maybe it's been longer that we found out that the synod was thinking about this.
Yes. Just a year. Yep.
And I think you've said that, Chris, that
Yep.
it would have been nicer if it had been 2 years, so we all had a chance to kind of digest what's this going on. What does this mean? Where is the beginning? Did someone, as Kathy said, where did the ideas come from that we needed to do more than we're already doing? Because I agree, this church is amazing with being very inclusive across the board. So I'm quite satisfied with what we're doing here. And I probably won't live long enough to worry about what the synod's doing in the future, but who knows? I just want to make sure that our main focus is that we serve God and serve each other in Jesus' name. And as that plays out in the details, just remember what the first focus is.
No, I appreciate that. And I think, I know it's the council's feeling, I know it's my feeling, I think it's all of those who come to worship here want to, the driving force behind this to be our faith. And what does it call us to do? And in particular, we want to find ways where we are inclusive, and we find ways that are not, that do not, we cause an awful lot of harm to people in the LGBT plus community over the history and time. The books are just scattered with story of churches harming people who were gay, or LGBT plus. Just in any number, folks would come into worship, or they would come to a church, and they would just, they would be you can just imagine. I don't want to try and invent something because I'll do it badly. But the point is that we have a history as a church. And I'm not just talking about Tree of Life. I'm talking about the church, okay? There is an attempt to try to begin to be better moving forward. for this congregation, the watershed moment was 2009 when we decided to start ordaining gay people. Now, that wasn't necessarily a choice a Tree of Life would have made on its own. If you'd asked me in 2009, I'm like, I don't want controversy. I want peace and love and happiness. And people would say, you're a wimp. And I said, no, I'm not. And then 10 years later, I'd be like, yeah, no, I'm a wimp. However, in that same regards, we moved through that moment, and I love who we've become. I love who this church is. I love who we are becoming. And I love what I think the future holds for us. I know what the future holds for us. What will that ultimately mean? How will that ultimately transpire? I don't necessarily know that answer, but I know that we have become an awful long way in 14 years. And I think we'll continue to make a lot of progress moving forward. I was a slow reader as a kid. Terrible at it, actually. But now, I'm a lot better. I'm a better thinker. I'm a little smarter now. Yeah, ish. It's relative. I'll grant you, But my point is that I'm getting there, right? I don't know where this church is going, but I know she'll get there if she'll just continue to live in her scripture, follow her mission. Where will that lead to RIC? I don't know. Could it lead to a gay pastor here? Possibly. Could it lead to a woman pastor? When I got here 15 years ago, it was told to me flat out, we wouldn't take a woman pastor. I went, challenge accepted. And so as soon as I was able, I started to find every woman preacher I could and sneak her in. Mother's Day, here we go. Every chance. Katie was Katie is amazing. We love Katie. And then we had Sue Gaeta, who is who is a friend of mine from seminary. She came through. I'm like, Pastor, you're up in the pulpit next week. And any chance I could find, I would bring a woman pastor into this congregation. And now this congregation has produced 2 of them. And one now serves on a seminary staff. Don't ask me how that works, because I have no clue. But there you go. One that we raised in Conroe now gets to start calling the shots in Iowa. Outstanding. So my point to all this is that that's where we started. And 2/3 of all the congregations out there would have happily taken a woman pastor back when Tree of Life started this process. And now I know you wouldn't even think twice of it. You'd interview a woman pastor and be like, yep, what you got to say? We would love to hear from her. And I'm not entirely, I don't think I would be spitting in the wind if I said, I think you would actually probably even call a gay pastor if they were just as qualified as anyone else and they wanted to come to Conroe, which is a little harder sell because I think we have like all of one Starbucks, or 2. But I kid, I just joke. My point is that Montgomery County and the people who want to serve in parishes who have grown up in left-leaning congregations may not feel drawn to Conroe, Texas. And I don't care if you're gay, straight, up, down, left, right, But I would very much like to think that you would hold to the mission statement in that moment. Invite all people. Because the line for us in the sand, as the Lutherans go, is that predatorial behavior. You know what I mean? That's where we get concerned. If a pastor is predatorial in their behavior, they are not qualified to serve the parish. And I think the bishop will tell you he has a whole lot harder time with his straight pastors than he does with any of his gay pastors. And I should add that we've had plenty of gay pastors in this church preaching. Pastor Morgan Gates over at the campus ministry. Y'all like Morgan? I do too. Could you envision Morgan being your pastor if if I get killed on the way home today? I'm not going to get killed on the way home. Just if I wasn't here, fine. If you had to go find another pastor, would you like Morgan? Wouldn't bother you at all, would it? She's solid. She's a professional. She's very good at what she does. She's the person I call when I'm having a bad day. Because I respect her to death. She's just amazing. And she has been through a lot. And so, I think as we have, the difference being is that we aren't necessarily flying a flag out on the front porch here. But quite frankly, I wouldn't, even if we were an RSC church, I would say don't do it. Because we can't afford the police officer that we would need at the front door, which is exactly what we would need. We are, we do have folks in this community that I don't entirely trust with their firearms. And you might know them too. And I would just prefer to keep everybody safe. Does that mean we're wimps? Maybe. But I happen to love my people. And I already lost one this week. I don't want to lose any more unnecessarily. You know what I mean? So it's a difficult situation. I'm not trying to sidestep it. I'm not trying to avoid the conversations. If anything, I'm just trying to do it in a way that is smart and intelligent, and that helps us move forward as a congregation in a way that keeps us safe. Yes, ma'am. A little closer.
A little closer.
There you
go. A
go.
little closer. Microphone up. A little closer. I'm a little different than most people.
What?
I get up and I ride motorcycles with the former county sheriff, Tommy Cage. I've sat down and had good conversations with the Republican chair. I can walk into Brandon Crichton's office and they know me by name. It's how you act yourself and how you respect other people. And I think other people respect that we do. So there are cops out there that I've been uncomfortable with. There's other cops that it doesn't bother me at all. So you just have to take the good with the bad, because we know there's good ones and there's good preachers and there's bad preachers and there's good preachers. But we are running a flag outside because we say we are welcome for all. And if they walk in the door, they get that treatment. You're welcome. We've had a couple in the church. I don't know if some of you met them all, but there was a almost transsexual that came in, and he stayed for about 2 weeks, and he never came back. Wouldn't even respond to my telephone calls. So we are flying a flag when we put it out there on the sign. So,
just unofficially.
Unofficially, yeah.
Unofficially, yep. I've never once. Look, I mean, if you've joined this church, you've heard me tell you the sex talk. That's what I call it. Time for the sex talk. Here's the deal. We ordain gay people. If you got a problem with that, you don't need to be here. I tell folks that. I tell folks that when I'm in town at the restaurant. I tell people that when I'm at Walmart. I try to sneak it into every conversation I can. I want to be very clear. This congregation is different than a lot of others because I think it's the distinction of ours. I just don't want to put us in harm's way because, quite frankly, this county at times has folks in it that make me a little anxious. And I don't know how. It's one of the reasons we lock the door now. I do not want someone to come in through the back door and teach us a lesson, quote unquote. Not interested in that day. Thank you very much. Kevin, I know I have just monopolized all the time here. I don't want to do that to you. You're welcome to say anything you like. Oh, we have one from the online community. Oh, well, yeah, we'll let Kevin answer this. Go ahead.
So the question, I'll try to paraphrase it because it's long.
What is the plan to keep this from becoming a bigger political division and keep faith at the forefront within the church?
Yeah.
And I asked for clarification whether the concern was within our congregation or the greater church, the synod and beyond.
Right.
And the response was both. We can only control here, but what is our plan?
So our plan is already in place. The mission statement was put in place, quite frankly, in 2009, a little late, I might add, because I was not very smart when I first got here. We got real lucky on some stuff, but when we were doing our victory lap after we did that whole thing I was preaching about today, of what I should have been doing at that time was building a mission statement. And instead I was like, look how great we are. I was going to other churches, telling our story, blah, blah, blah. Should have been working on the mission statement. Suddenly I needed a mission statement, didn't have a mission statement. And so I just created a mission statement one Sunday and said, if you're willing to back this up, please stand up. And everyone stood up. And I can tell this story now because he's been dead a number of years, but Morris Eichenhorst came to my office. And if you know Morris, you know that he did not mince his words. And Morris said to me, I heard about your little stunt. I said, yes, sir. What about it? Well, I don't agree with any of this. I said, I understand that. I said, but also, Morris, I was very clear when I took this call that I was done fighting this. And I didn't care, whether he never envisioned a day where the church would say that it was open to gay people. He was just fearful that I'd come in and try to make Tree of Life that way. He's like, so what are you going to do about it? I said, not a thing. This is what it is. This is going to happen. I'm for it. I'm not going to force you to believe that because I can't. I wouldn't dream of it. But I think the mission statement's solid, and I think time has proven that to be the case. In that same spirit, Paideia Christian School could not be more conservative. So you have a church that ordains gay people, allowing a church that a school that if its parents knew that we ordain gay people, they may not send them to school here because of what the church that they pay rent to does. Well, that's not my problem. But here's what I do love, is that we're all in community here. I know that most of us in this room are fairly moderate in our beliefs. Maybe we sit a little farther to the right, a little this. But point is, we got people on a whole spectrum now in one building. And that is the mission, is it not? All people. And I'll tell you, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, if you had said to me, hey, Paideia wants to start a school in your building, I'd been like, no. Mm-mm. Oh, and they want to use your sanctuary too. Oh, no, 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 no. But the more I saw this country get divided over the last 8 years, 5 years, how long it's been, during the COVID days and everything else, it just realized that the far left and the far right were getting farther and farther and farther from each other. And so I saw this as an opportunity to bring us back under the same roof. Now, one of their top teachers is a Lutheran. My wife teaches science for them, which is hilarious because she's an English major. But she's very good at science because her faith has not really gotten in the way of science-y stuff. And you can't tell me that there's not some cross-pollination going on there. And vice versa. And it's just fine. Our mission will hold the same. Will we be taking an agenda to change who this congregation is? This congregation is what she is right now. These are the people that we have. We're going to use them for the ministry of Jesus Christ. If I could go out and pick the ones I wanted, maybe they might look at me like believe what I believe. But quite frankly, I married a conservative 27 years ago, and I love her to death. For whatever liberal reason I have in my heart, I seem to have a propensity to the right. I don't know why, but it's working. And I think it can work here too. And so what I don't want to do is say, hey, we're never going to do this. We're never going to do that. Because I want to leave it open. At the same time, I am not going to force or challenge the council to force or anybody to force someone to be something they're not. And if we discovered that we have prejudiced attitudes about stuff, well, then I guess we need to probably explore that and work that. We did not go out and hire a black youth director for the sake of having a black youth director. Turns out the black youth director was just very good at her job over at the YMCA. And so when I brought her on board, I said, Ikira, I'm going to give you, you're going to love this job. and then I said to her, and I'm going to give you a chance to change the world. We've never had a black staff member here. You're going to bring conversation to the table in a way that we've never had. And we're going to do it in the context of relationship. We've hired a gay staff member. We had a gay secretary here for over a year. Of course, it was in the middle of COVID, so it was a little hard to have deep conversations about some of that stuff. But I think those experiences have proven to us that a person's sexuality or skin color, though bringing a unique flavor to whatever it is that they're doing, is not the whole story. People are wonderfully complex and fascinating, and if they can do a good job of what it is we're asking them to do, whether it be in the church or anything else, that they are most welcome to be a part of that. I mean, Ronnie, I almost stopped in my sermon today because I said, I've never had anyone come to me and say, I want to serve on church council. But then after I said that, I was like, I know of one. And I know she is waiting for the day. And Ronnie, when you're, and the only reason you're not on church council is I have an unofficial rule that says you got to spend a little bit of time with the people so they know who you are. But don't worry, your day of being on church council is not far away. I assure you there's plenty of work to be done, and you are going to be a most welcome addition to that. Well, don't leave her out there, for gosh sakes. We love Christine. She's the one that keeps you sane. Okay, all right, as long as she's not suffering. Thank you, Ronnie, I appreciate you. And so, I do not think that is what this congregation is struggling with. I think it is some very nuanced things that are in the Reconciling Work website that have created some of the hubbub about this. We need to figure out what that's about, get to the bottom of it. Maybe it's something, maybe it's nothing, but we're going to figure it out. Thinking of camp real quick. A number of years ago, they went. Some folks after the 2009 vote came to Matt Kinsfather, and they asked him, "Go, what are you going to do if you have a gay staff member? Are you going to make them use the bathroom somewhere else, or this or whatever?" And Matt said, "Well, first of all, you'll never know because they're professionals." And second of all, we don't let any of our staff member in the bathroom with any of our campers ever anyways. So it's a moot point. That's a very pragmatic answer, but it's the kind of thing I just love because it's rubber meets the road. And treats people in a manner that is consistent and fair and honest and genuine, and gives a person a chance to fly if they can fly without having to deal with biased or prejudiced. I don't know if that entirely answers the question, but that's my best answer for it. Other questions, feelings, or impressions? How about I bring you a microphone just to be kind? Nope, you stay put. I like you. Yep.
It's for the president. what was the vote for if we didn't vote to belong to this church? The AIC, what
The
did you vote
RIC
for?
is really
AIC?
for the Senate office. Again, I'm splitting hairs here, but for simplicity's sake, it really affects a good chunk of the Senate office. There may be, like there are committees that aren't directly a part of, like the disaster committee, okay? The disaster committee is not necessarily a Senate office thing. It's a synod thing. And so those same rules would apply to those committees in terms of how we're going to treat people of race, gender, sexuality. But quite frankly, we were already doing that before we took the RIC vote. So all the RIC vote did was affirm what we were already doing. I don't think so. John, blue? Blue.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm not much into titles. I'm more into the action. Action speaks louder than titles. And then when Ronnie said that, and I was like, that's exactly what we're doing. So this was strictly for what the synod office wanted. They wanted that title, and they wanted it to be public and out there. So then they just asked the churches, are you okay with us doing this? That's basically what it all was about.
Oh, see? That's a much better way of putting it.
And so
you should talk more.
Okay, I'm not the smartest person in this room. I'm going to tell you that right now. I deal more with common sense. Common sense isn't so common anymore. So when I heard all of this, I was like, okay, this is about them. It's not about us. They're just asking for permission to have that title because they want it out for the people to know that this is what they do and this is how they handle all people. Our statement says we invite all. And that's what we do. And you got that from Ronnie when, that was emotional right there that she came up and said all that. I'm like, that's what we've been wanting to do here, and that's what we've always done as far as I'm concerned. But like I said, I'm not the smartest boy in the room, but what I've seen, like even today, there was a couple in the back corner, and Ronnie and I met eyes, and we're like, okay, the gentleman can't get up there to take communion, but that was family. We made it happen to get Pastor back there to give him, communion back there. And she started crying, the woman that was with them. And they're like, I said, I hope to see you back here. Oh, without a doubt, we'll be back here. And that's what we do. We're a family. It doesn't matter all this, that, and the other. When we're in here, we work together. It's about relationships. We have good relationships here.
I'd like to point out we're a little of a dysfunctional family.
Well, that goes without saying.
That goes without saying, but let's be clear, we are family in that regard. Just, there are healthier families out there.
Yeah, we've been guided down that way.
Yeah, I understand. All right, yes, sir. Anyway, I'm happy to do the Oprah thing. Yeah, go ahead.
I just think that maybe if this had been discussed at the time of the vote, it wouldn't have been. It could have been handled better on my part, and I apologize. Again, I didn't think anything of it. I really just didn't think it was that big of a deal because it was, as I've said, it was already happening. But I think the language, especially if you come out of Missouri Synod setting and you see the word Synod, your mind immediately thinks, oh, this is top down, this is what we are. Or you have this feel of they're going to tell us what we have to do, which is never popular. We would rather get there on our own. I understand that. My Nebraska people were the same way. They did not like to be told what to do. Sometimes we have to. There are moments where that does need to happen. However, in this case, I feel like we're all on the same path, going the same direction. We're just doing it a little differently. That's all.
And so Larry gave us an assignment. We're getting after that assignment as a council. We're going to find out about the money situation and how what they support and what they do. Now, we've already had people in our congregation that say they would give the money out of their own pocket to cover that, so nothing from the church actually goes there. It would be this individual. So we've already had people step up and say that. They'd say, well, you don't worry about the church having to give that money. I'll be the one that donates the money that goes there. So there's so many great people in this church that just want to make sure we're doing the right things at different levels. And so what we do is what we do. I love what we have here. There's many opportunities. You could go to another church and say, I don't like, but you know what? I don't want to. I like it here. And we're going to deal with whatever comes our way. And we're going to do it together as a family, as a church. And we're going to be better for whatever it is. That's what it boils down to, you know? So that's where I'm at on this. And like I said, I'm not the smartest man in the room or person in the room, but you chose me some way to be president. I don't understand that either, but
nobody else
stuck with me. There was nobody else. Bingo.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Ronnie wasn't here yet, but if she could have been, you'd have been like, I'm on board with that. Absolutely. Yeah, Larry, you were going to say? Oh, okay. I do, look, information is easy to, well, sometimes it's easy to get. We're going to get it together. All I ask is you just give us some time to get it all figured out. But we'll get there. I don't think that's, I know it's not insurmountable. My hope is that at the end of the day, what we will learn is that we have more in common with reconciling works than we don't have in common. I don't know, but that's my hope. And that some of the concerns and the anxieties that we've tripped upon the way, because, and valid concerns, I don't want to suggest that they aren't, that we can work this out. I just don't want a knee-jerk reaction that says, well, we're not going to do this or we're not going to do that without exploring it, learning it, understanding it, figuring it out. I mean, we may not be the smartest people in the whole room, but I'd also like to think that we are also the folks who get stuff done. I mean, this church supplied for the folks over at Zion Lutheran a generator and several fans for the Pride Parade this week. All right? Now, part of that was just me saying, hey, you can borrow it. All means all. If you need it, use it. That's what it's there for, right? I mean, didn't think twice of it. Sure. Oh my gosh, what else do you need? Need tents? We got tents, I don't want people getting hurt. Maybe we aren't necessarily flying a rainbow flag in front of our church, but we're going to take care of everybody, whether they fly one or not. All I ever ask of anyone is everybody gets treated with dignity and respect. That your beliefs are not driven out of hate. And that your choices aren't made out of fear. But out of research, depth, conversation, prayer, scripture. That you use the sources that have been very good for Christianity for some time. And I think we're going to get to where we're going. We're going to address more racial issues. We're going to be doing the book during VBS. I don't know why I'm pointing at you. You don't have any issues with race, but sorry. I got stuff to learn, y'all. Look, and here's the other thing is that when it comes to things like LGBT, race, gender, sexuality, all that, I struggle with the language as much as anyone else. I don't know how to do this right. I just know that I want to figure it out so that I can be in relationship with folks. And I cannot stress this enough because I get asked all the time, well, Pastor, what is the line in the sand? What is it that your church won't accept? The answer is predatory behavior. It doesn't matter what your gender, what your race, or what your sexuality. If you take advantage of someone from a position of power, you are not qualified to serve a leadership position in this church. Now, with that said, you are still welcome to be in the church. In this regards, Bishop Mike and I are, I love Bishop's analogy to this. He says, look, if you go to jail for embezzling $10,000, there's a very good chance we're not going to let you be treasurer. I think that's reasonable. And yet, in this church, you can work your way back into a parish position as a pastor, but you have to go through the entire call process again. You have to go to seminary again, thank goodness, but you do have to go through the call process after 5 years, and you have to show that you have figured out and learned and grown from that. I don't know how many people have actually done it, but there is a way back. So it's not even a matter of we won't even let you be quote unquote treasurer. We will never let you be treasurer if you embezzle $10,000. I don't care how much therapy you go to. Sorry, that's just not going to happen. The insurance company alone wouldn't let us do that. But Ted's like, yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah. But the fact that we do have these hard lines, at least I think stands as a reasonable example that this church isn't just wishy-washy doing what it wants. It's really genuinely trying to do the right thing in a way that is meaningful and sustainable. And quite frankly, you would think, well, aren't all churches like that? Well, if you really want to go do some interesting reading, go read about the Southern Baptist Convention. They have struggled with this. Go read about the Catholic Church. They have struggled with this issue. And as far as that goes, so did the Lutherans, the ELCA Lutherans, at one point. Cost us $80 million. 40 from the seminary I went, 40 from the ELCA. We learned a lot from that. And so now we work very hard to make sure that we do not have leaders that will take advantage of folks. But a person's sexuality, race, is not the thing that we are most concerned about. I can go all day.
It's my son's birthday.
Yeah. I have no qualms with that. He can have a birthday. Are there
Anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, other questions, though? We would probably like to wrap this up.
Sure, it's going to be, he picked Buffalo Wild.
Man, he's getting old. Which boy? Evan. By the way, I'm sorry I misspelled his name on Facebook the other day. I fixed that. But, yeah.
I don't have Facebook. So.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's cool. Where's the choir? I missed the choir. Yeah. You read between the lines. Yeah, all right. Hey, I appreciate your time. Did you have one more thing you want to add? Yeah. I don't know. Facial hair? I don't know. The Lord be with you. Let's close in prayer. Gracious God, as we move forward, help us continue to grow. Help us become more educated and become the people that you want us to be. I beg of you to hold us to the fire when it comes to our mission statement. Help us be the people that this community needs and wants. May we not lose our way. Trust, God, that these folks can follow a direction. And I trust that you can continue to push us that way. Through your Son we pray. Amen. Blessings to you all. If you have further questions, and I mean anything at all, Kevin is available to you 24/7. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Larry.
Conversation is good. Conversation is good.
Thank you, sir.
Pastor Morgan told me that she had a connection with reconciling work.
Oh, there we go.
But she never did get it.